Hey guys, tonight we're taking a very gentle tumble out of Olympus, into a pasture where gods pretend to be shepherds, sheep judge your harp skills, and divine punishment looks suspiciously like an unpaid internship. You're about to shadow Apollo, not while he's smiting people or chasing nymphs, but during that one time he got grounded by Zeus and had to tend goats for a full mortal year. Imagine this, the golden god of music, prophecy, and high-maintenance haircare, trudging through dusty Thessalian meadows, swatting gnats and trying to remember which sheep he counted already. No chariots, no laurels, just grass stains and mild existential dread. You probably wouldn't survive this kind of rustic demotion, not unless you're really into uncomfortable sandals and sheep that ignore you. But Apollo? Well, he doesn't exactly thrive either. Not at first. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in a hallway made of gold. Not metaphorical gold, actual, impractical, heavy, creaky gold. Welcome to Olympus, home of dramatic exits, immortal pettiness, and family therapy that never happened. Today, you're in trouble. Again. No one quite remembers what set Zeus off this time. Was it the incident with the oracle? Or the unfortunate affair with the river god's niece? Or maybe just the song you played on your lyre during the last divine banquet, a bold little ditty titled Ode to Zeus's Bald Spot. Historians still argue about the exact cause. What we do know is this: the king of the gods was not amused. You, Apollo, divine archer and sunlight incarnate, have been sentenced to a year of mortal labor. And not just any labor. Shepherding. With actual sheep. On earth. There is, of course, some precedent. The gods are big on symbolic punishment. Hermes once had to babysit all of Dionysus's drunk friends for an entire weekend. Athena had to teach basic weaving to mortals who kept poking themselves. Even Ares once spent a month cleaning stables, though no one brings that up unless they want a thunderbolt to the face. So now it's your turn. You're being banished to Thessaly, a sleepy region nestled between scrubby mountains and whispering pine groves. It's known for olives, endless hills, and the kind of quiet that makes even your thoughts echo. Your job? Tend sheep for a mortal named Admetus. You try to protest, of course. You gesture toward your glowing aura. You remind them of your titles: Lord of the Lyre, Slayer of Serpents, Master of Medicine, Bringer of Prophecy. Zeus reminds you you're also the god of plague, which he finds incredibly ironic, given how much you whine about minor inconveniences. You're given an afternoon to prepare. Not that you own anything that travels well. Ambrosia doesn't keep in mortal air, your chariot doesn't have wheels for dirt paths, and your robes, all shimmering silks and sun-drenched folds, aren't exactly shepherd core. So you pack lightly. A plain white chiton, well, plainish. There's still a gold trim, a small travel lyre made of tortoiseshell and wistful sighs, and a laurel crown you're definitely not leaving behind. You also sneak a flask of nectar, because you have taste. Then, just like that, you descend. It's not a dramatic fall. No lightning bolt. No screams from the heavens. Just a slow, syrupy drop from cloud to hillside, the world unfolding beneath you like a fresco. Thessaly yawns below, green and brown and sunlit and ordinary. You land, barefoot, in a sheep field that smells like thyme, goat fur, and the unmistakable staleness of hay that's been trampled since yesterday. The sheep ignore you. A goat blinks at you with one horizontal eye, snorts, and goes back to chewing the corner of a fence post. There's a man in the distance, waving. Admetus. Your new boss. He's mortal, handsome in that underslept way, and blissfully unaware that his new farmhand is a literal deity. You walk toward him, trying not to glow too obviously. And that's when it hits you, you don't actually know what shepherds do. Sure, you've seen them in paintings, lounging under olive trees with flutes and bad poetry. But you're pretty sure that's just pastoral propaganda. Already, you've stepped in something squishy, you've startled a hen, don't ask why the hen was in the field, and your lyre is collecting dust in ways it was never meant to. Still, you smile. You nod. You say something vague and confident about being very connected to nature. Admetus beams. He claps you on the shoulder and hands you a crooked wooden staff. "This'll help," he says. You nearly drop it. It's sticky. With something you don't identify. This is going to be a long year. You rise before dawn the next morning, because apparently that's what shepherds do. Mortals have a strange relationship with the sun, waking before it, worrying about it rising, celebrating it with songs you wouldn't deign to hum in a thunderstorm. Still, there's something quietly divine about the pale light washing over the hills, turning the dew into trembling silver. You stretch, feeling your spine do something it's never done before, ache. The sheep are already awake. They stand like judgmental lumps, waiting to be led somewhere more edible. You have no idea where that is. Admetus left early to run errands in town, tossing you a breezy, "Just keep them out of the olive groves," as he disappeared down the hill. No instructions. No map. No divine scroll bearing celestial guidance. Just you, 37 sheep, 2 goats, and 1 donkey named Skelos, who may be part gremlin. You give it your best. You recall something Hermes once said during a particularly long walk across Arcadia: "Sheep move if you move like you've already got somewhere better to be." So you try that. You walk with conviction, striding across the field like a runway model headed to brunch. The sheep stare. One coughs. None follow. You sigh and pluck your lyre. The melody you choose is a soft one, something you wrote centuries ago for a river nymph who kept misplacing her oars. It's low, looping, and undeniably catchy. The sheep, to your surprise, perk up. Their ears flick. The goats pause their chewing. Even Skelos trots forward with a look of mild interest. It's working. You play and walk, playing and walking, and slowly, like a tide made of wool, the flock follows. You feel absurdly proud. This is shepherding, right? A kind of rustic choreography. You're not just a god on earth. You're a god with rhythm. By midday, you've led them to a sun-drenched patch of wild grass speckled with violets. You sit on a flat rock, the lyre resting in your lap, and let yourself enjoy the stillness. The world here moves slowly. Even the clouds seem to drift with intention. You doze briefly, head tilted back, until the sun's heat nudges you awake. That's when you realize, you forgot to bring them back. The sheep are blissed out in their meadow, but the olive grove is visible just beyond the next rise. And they are wandering. Panic sets in. You leap up, sprinting toward the edge of the field, arms flailing in what you hope resembles authority. A few sheep baa in protest. One of the goats bolts. Skelos rolls in the dust, utterly useless. You manage to wrangle them away from the grove with nothing but your voice and a new tune, slightly more aggressive than before, more march than lullaby. It works. Barely. By the time you return to the farm, you're disheveled, dirt-smudged, and sweating in ways you haven't since the Trojan Wars. Your laurel crown has a dandelion stuck in it. One sandal is missing. Admetus greets you with a bowl of lentils and a grin. "Not bad for your first day," he says. You don't correct him. You don't mention that you can hear the grass composing sonnets about you now, or that you saw time wrinkle slightly when you tripped over a root. Instead, you sit beside him and eat, marveling at how long it's been since you needed food. The lentils are adequate. You bless them under your breath anyway, and Admetus doesn't notice the faint sparkle in his spoon. That night, you sleep in a barn loft, curled in hay, the sounds of bleating and wind rustling through wooden slats. The stars are clearer here. You recognize them like old friends, twinkling in formations you once drew across the sky with your own hand. Orion winks. The Pleiades hum lullabies only gods remember. You dream, not of Olympus, but of something else. Of growing roots. Of being useful without glory. Of the soft, constant bleat of things that don't know who you are and love you anyway. It's disconcerting. The next morning, Admetus tells you about the wolf. Couple nights ago, he says, scratching his chin. Snatched a lamb right from the edge of the field. Nasty thing. Pale as bone. You freeze. There are no normal wolves with that description. Pale how, you ask, trying to keep your voice casual. Like ash. Like smoke, he replies. Didn't make a sound. Just vanished. Your thoughts spin. You know this creature. Probably not a wolf at all, more likely a stray shade, a thing that slipped through a crack from Hades' realm. They follow the scent of grief. Or confusion. Or divine displacement. You consider summoning your bow. But it's up there, Olympus, or buried in a cloud somewhere. Instead, you teach Admetus a charm. A simple verse, harmless to mortals but irritating to things that live in shadows. He doesn't ask how you know it. He's starting to suspect something, but hasn't pieced it together. You're just the shepherd who glows faintly at sunset. That night, you stay awake. The sheep snore. The donkey sleep talks. The stars pulse overhead. No wolf comes. But the shadows move a little differently now. The third morning begins with something unexpected, rain. Not a biblical downpour, not a dramatic thunderclap followed by divine wrath. Just the soft, sleepy kind that smells like wet rosemary and regret. You wake to find the sheep huddled under a crooked awning made of branches, all staring at you like it's your job to fix the sky. The goats are conspicuously absent, Skelos included. You assume they're plotting something, possibly involving your lyre and a suspicious amount of chewing. Rain is a novelty. As a god, you've danced above storms, sung lullabies to winds, and once got mildly tipsy on a cloudburst fermented by nymphs. But being under rain, real, cold, mortal rain, feels like a prank. Your chitin clings to you like an indignant sea sponge. Your hair, normally golden and self-arranging, now frizzes like a disgruntled laurel bush. You attempt to build a better shelter. This involves sticks, muttering, and a very long moment where you genuinely consider using divine fire. But no shortcuts. That was part of the punishment agreement. No magic. No calling in favors. Just sheep, weather, and patience. Historians still argue whether this particular year of servitude was meant as moral instruction or divine theater. Some believe Zeus was trying to teach humility. Others say it was Hera's idea, part of an ongoing bet with Athena over which god could survive the longest on mortal food. Either way, you're soaked, underpaid, and about 10 minutes from composing a symphony titled Ode to Damp Feet. Admetus eventually finds you in the field, holding a piece of canvas over your head like a very elegant mushroom. You all right? He asks, grinning. Thought the sun god might melt. You offer a tight smile. I'm waterproof in theory. He laughs and helps you stretch the canvas into a makeshift tent. For someone raised among mortals, he's surprisingly competent. He knots ropes with ease, ties corners to trees, and whistles a tune you vaguely recognize from a banquet 200 years ago. You don't ask how he knows it. As the day lumbers on, the rain continues. The sheep are quiet, the kind of quiet that only happens when their wool is heavy and their stomachs are full. You sit under the canvas, listening to the world slow down. Eventually, Admetus brings out a board game carved into the side of a log. Pebbles for pieces, simple rules involving cows, harvests, and a suspicious number of floods. You're terrible at it. You lose 5 times in a row. You're not much of a farmer, Admetus teases. You arch a brow. And you've never seen a sunbeam do this. You reach out and flip a stone, just a flick of your finger, and it lands upright in a goat's horn 20 paces away. Admetus blinks. You shrug. He doesn't ask questions. Not yet. You think he doesn't want to know. That evening, after the sky's clear and the sheep are asleep in a warm pile of fluff, you sit by the barn with your lyre. The strings are damp, but the tune still shimmers. You hum something old. Something from Delos. The island of your birth. The kind of melody that remembers the taste of salt and light and silence. A moth lands on your hand. It's glowing faintly, just enough for you to notice the constellation in its wings. You smile. Artemis must be listening. She always sends moths. You miss her. Not just the sister you raced across the heavens with, but the quiet, knowing glances she gave you when the other gods stopped listening. She'd understand this year. The slowness. The ache. The purpose in it. You think, just for a moment, of asking her to come down. Just for an evening. But that would be cheating. And besides, Artemis was never one for fields with fences. The next day dawns crisp. The rain has cleaned everything, stones shine, the trees drip like gossiping nymphs, and even the sheep look marginally less judgmental. You and Admetus walk the perimeter of the farm, checking for signs of the pale wolf. You find a few scattered prints, but they vanish near the river. No fur. No scent. Just a faint hum in the air, like the silence that follows a god holding his breath. Back at the barn, Skelos returns. Muddy. Triumphant. Carrying something in his mouth that turns out to be your missing sandal, now partially chewed. You thank him anyway. He sneezes in your face. You start naming the sheep. You hadn't meant to. You thought it would be easier to remain distant. But after 3 days of the same 20 creatures nudging your knees, chewing your sleeve, and following you into thistles, they feel like characters. Like coworkers you never asked for. There's Bramble, who always walks slightly sideways. Nimbus, who stares at the sky as though she's expecting news. Melon, who eats everything and then looks surprised. And Gravel, who may be plotting something, possibly taxes. You tell them stories. Not the grand ones. Not the Iliad-level epics. But little tales. About a turtle who tricked a god. About the first apple tree to learn sarcasm. About how the stars once had names that tasted like cinnamon. They listen. Sort of. Mostly they chew and blink. But it helps. You, the god of music, reduced to bedtime storyteller for ruminants. And yet, you've never slept better. The morning mist still clings to the grass as you and Admetus follow the path down to the riverbank. The sky is a pale blur, the color of washed linen, and the world feels newly made, like someone only recently remembered to finish painting it. The sheep are penned. The goats, mostly, have been bribed into docility with a breakfast of dried fig leaves. Skelos, proudly muddy from yesterday's sandal-fetching victory, trots at your side, occasionally stopping to sniff at tufts of grass as if auditioning for a mystery play. Admetus leads, his staff tapping against stones as he walks. You follow in silence, adjusting the folds of your chiton, which still smells vaguely of sheep and rain. You could have dried it instantly with a flick of power, of course, but no magic. Not even for laundry. The river is low this time of year, a long shimmer of light tucked into the earth. Birds rustle in the reeds, and somewhere off in the trees, a frog makes a sound that would be deeply offensive if translated into ancient Delian. There, Admetus murmurs, crouching near the muddy edge. Tracks. You kneel beside him. Large, clean prints. 4 toes. Deep impressions. A wolf, yes, but bigger than any local breed should be. Much bigger. Skelos growls faintly, ears pinned back. You see that spacing? Admetus traces the prints with his finger. No hesitation in the stride. It wasn't wandering. It was hunting. You nod, suppressing the godly instinct to consult the stars for confirmation. You're doing this the mortal way, after all. Mud and guesswork. Historians still argue whether the wolf was real or mythic. Some say it was a punishment in physical form, a shadow sent by the fates to test you. Others suggest it was an actual creature, perhaps a relic of older times, when monsters were still common and gods still walked openly. Regardless, the tracks are fresh. Less than a few hours old. Which means the wolf is nearby. You and Admetus fan out, careful not to crush the path. You find a broken branch. A tuft of pale fur snagged on a thorn. A small mound of disturbed earth that smells faintly of musk and something older, like dust and distant thunder. Maybe it's just passing through, Admetus offers, not sounding convinced. You tilt your head, eyes scanning the tree line. No. This place is part of something now. A story. And stories always circle back. You pause. Besides, you named your dog after Cerberus. Skelos? He named himself. Skelos, at that exact moment, flops onto his back and begins snorting dramatically into a patch of clover. You're not convinced he could guard a fig tart, let alone an underworld gate. As you begin the walk back, you notice something you didn't see on the way down, a stone circle half buried in the undergrowth. Not natural. Too even. And at the center, a carved symbol, faded but unmistakable, a sun disk flanked by two wolves. You touch it gently. The stone is warm, too warm, as if the sun had kissed only this one spot. Admetus watches you. That means something to you? You hesitate. Just old symbols. Farmers used to mark land to keep animals away. Not a lie, not exactly. Just cropped truth. That symbol wasn't meant to keep animals out. It was meant to bind something in. Later that evening, you sketch the shape of the circle from memory in the dust outside the barn. You draw the wolves, the disc, the points radiating outward like spokes on a wheel. You hum as you do it, an old hymn, half remembered from temple steps and smoky incense. The sheep gather to watch. Melon steps directly on your drawing, then sneezes with great satisfaction. You try not to take it personally. Inside, Admetus sets stew to simmering. Lentils, wild herbs, and something you hope isn't eel. The smell is surprisingly pleasant. You haven't had a warm meal in days. Not one made with care. You catch yourself thinking, for the second or third time this week, that you might actually enjoy this strange mortal sabbatical. There's something in the simplicity, wet wool, a crackling fire, the way dusk folds itself quietly over the farm like a blanket. But your mind drifts back to the stone circle. To the two fresh prints. To the old story your father once told, of wolves that walk without shadows, who answer only to gods or those gods have abandoned. You shiver, and not from the cold. That night, you dream of a hallway with no doors, lined with feathers and teeth. You walk barefoot, and the floor is warm beneath you. At the end of the hall, a wolf waits. Not snarling. Just watching. You wake just before dawn. The sky is still sleeping. The sheep are still dreaming. And Skelos, ever valiant, is snoring into your discarded sandal. You look toward the woods. Something is watching. You can't see it. But you know, you don't mention the dream to Admetus. Not because you're hiding anything, gods have hundreds of dreams and most of them involve symbolic vegetables, but because some things, even in this human year, need to sit in silence a while before they're named aloud. Like the taste of a strange spice or the presence of an old friend who's changed just enough to make you hesitate. Instead, you start the day with the sheep. Again. They're waiting, as always, by the fence like mildly annoyed aristocrats. Melon is chewing on her own ear. Gravel is staring into the distance as though he's calculating interest rates on hay. You open the gate and they parade past you one by one, each with a personal sense of purpose and zero spatial awareness. You shepherd them toward the northern pasture today, the one with the flatter rocks and fewer thistles. You find yourself humming a Delian song again, one the fishermen used to sing to the sea so it wouldn't steal their nets. It's strange how music comes back when your hands are full of twine and your feet are wet with dew. Admetus joins you halfway through the morning. He carries a bundle of feed and a flask of something hot, some mortal drink made from crushed barley and impatience. He hands it to you without ceremony, and you sip, pretending not to grimace. It tastes like ambition and mud. You didn't sleep well, he says casually. You glance at him. No? He nods. You were singing in your sleep. Something, not Greek. You pause, weighing the cost of denial. Delian lullaby. My mother used to sing it. He raises an eyebrow. Didn't think gods had mothers. Everyone starts somewhere. He lets it go. Another point in his favor. The day passes slowly, like honey reluctant to leave the jar. You move from rock to tree to crooked post, checking the fences, adjusting your cloak, trying not to notice how each corner of the field seems to press in just a little tighter today. The sheep are quieter than usual. Bramble keeps glancing toward the forest, ears twitching. Even Skelos is less performative, sniffing the wind with a focused, low growl in his throat. Then you hear it. Not a howl. Not yet. But a low rumble, like a string being plucked far beneath the earth. The kind of sound wolves make when they're not trying to scare you. Just letting you know they're near. Admetus hears it too. He straightens, one hand instinctively going to the old knife at his belt. You suspect it hasn't seen use in years. You speak softly. Stay with the flock. I'll check the ridge. He frowns. You sure? You offer a half smile. I'm taller. If the wolf eats me, it'll be full. He doesn't laugh. But he lets you go. You climb the ridge slowly, each step measured, as though the ground might hold secrets underfoot. You remember once being able to fly, wings of light, anthems in your breath. Now your knees ache when you crouch, and your ankles crack like ungreased hinges. Halfway up, you find it. A mark. Carved into a tree. Deep, clean. A claw, or something very like it. 3 lines, no more, no less, angled like a trident missing its handle. The bark around it has darkened, not with sap but with sorrow. That's the only word for it. It feels like grief, stained into wood. Historians still argue what this symbol meant. Some say it's the mark of a cursed spirit, others believe it's a warning from ancient protector deities, the kind that predate Olympus and never quite retired. A few even claim it's the signature of Lycaon himself, the king who dined on flesh and got turned into a wolf for his troubles. You run your fingers over the mark. The tree hums faintly beneath your hand, as if echoing an old note from a broken lyre. You do not like this. Behind you, the sheep bleat nervously. You turn to look and spot Admetus waving. He's pointing to the far edge of the pasture. You squint. There. Movement. Just a flicker. A pale blur weaving between the trees, silent and fast. Too fast. Then it's gone. You make your way down, fast but not running. You don't want to spook the flock. They're already unsettled, and Melon is chewing with such aggression that you're worried for the structural integrity of her own teeth. Admetus meets you halfway. Did you see it? He asks. You nod. Just enough. He frowns. It's watching us. You nod again. Neither of you says what you're thinking, that it's choosing when to appear. That it could have taken a sheep. Or you. Or Skelos, who currently looks like he's forgotten what danger is and is trying to eat a dandelion. But it hasn't. Not yet. That evening, back at the barn, you set the sheep inside early. Skelos gets a thorough scrubbing, which he endures with the dignity of a demoted senator. Admetus lights an extra torch and wedges it near the doorway. The shadows flicker, uncertain and uneasy. You sit by the doorway with your lyre. You play nothing heroic. Just a lullaby. Minor chords. Gentle dissonance. The kind of music that keeps the stars from blinking too hard. Above you, the sky stretches out. Clear. Chill. A full moon rising slow, like a cautious promise. You hum, and somewhere in the woods, the wolf hums back. By the 6th day, you've adopted a new morning routine: count the sheep, check the fences, scan the tree-line for pale wolves, then stare into the middle distance while sipping barley coffee and questioning your life choices. It's almost meditative. Admetus doesn't speak much that morning. He's still mulling over the sighting. The two of you walk the pasture perimeter in silence, with Skelos zigzagging ahead, sniffing at rocks like they owe him money. The sheep, to their credit, seem marginally less paranoid. Bramble even ventures near the shaded patch where the wolf was last seen, although she maintains an air of passive-aggressive distrust, as though expecting a second ambush or an unsolicited sermon. At one point, Admetus mutters, "Maybe it's not hungry." You glance at him. Or maybe it's thinking. That earns you a strange look. Since when do wolves think? You shrug. Some creatures prefer their prey well seasoned. That doesn't help the mood. You decide to steer the conversation elsewhere. What's your story, Admetus? You always this cheerful, or is it a recent curse? He chuckles. You don't ask many questions for a stranger. Strangers ask dumb ones. I prefer the weird ones. He thinks about that. All right. My story. Short version. My father tried to sell me off to a neighboring kingdom. Something about forging alliances through livestock and awkward marriage arrangements. I ran. Found work tending goats. Didn't hate it. You blink. That's not as tragic as I expected. Oh, don't worry. I'm compressing for time. He leaves it there. You sense a kinship with this mortal. Not just because he keeps his secrets neat and tied like bedrolls, but because he walks with the kind of weariness you recognize. The kind that comes from being useful to others but not often seen. You remember that feeling from Olympus. You spend the afternoon mending a portion of the fence that's been sagging since you arrived. It's not exactly heroic, but there's something quietly satisfying about pulling rope taut and seeing straight lines emerge from chaos. The physicality of it grounds you, something your divine muscles have rarely been allowed to do. On Olympus, your strength was ornamental. Here, it has calluses. Historians still argue whether Apollo enjoyed his time among mortals. Some claim he found it humiliating, a low-budget punishment from the pantheon. Others suggest it was a sabbatical in disguise, a self-imposed exile with therapeutic undertones. A few radical scholars go as far as to say he chose it, not out of guilt, but curiosity. You like that version. That evening, the sheep are restless again. Melon keeps head-butting a fence post like she's interrogating it. Nimba stands near the gate, eyes fixed on the horizon. Even Gravel is quiet, which is deeply suspicious. You wait until after dinner, something involving chickpeas, overboiled onions, and a heroic amount of vinegar, before grabbing your lyre and heading out to the ridge alone. You leave a note for Admetus. It just says, "Out for a walk. If I don't come back, avenge me with style." You climb the path slowly. The night is clear, stars flickering like anxious thoughts. You hum as you go, a wordless melody designed to confuse anything trying to stalk you. It's a divine trick, older than Troy, and it makes the wind hesitate in your wake. At the top of the ridge, you find the mark again. It hasn't changed. But now there's something new, a scattering of feathers nearby. White, iridescent, too large for any bird you know. They shimmer faintly, as though still remembering flight. You kneel beside them. Pick one up. It thrums in your fingers. Not mortal. Definitely not owl, eagle, or heron. No. This came from a creature with memory and malice. Possibly something that doesn't even need wings to fly. You hear a rustle. Not far. You turn, slow and quiet. And there it is. The wolf. Pale as moonlight, lean as hunger, standing between two trees like a forgotten thought. Its eyes glow faintly, not gold, not red, but something stranger. Like starlight caught in ice. It doesn't growl. Doesn't snarl. Just watches. You stare back. You don't reach for your lyre. You don't speak. You just breathe, slowly, letting the night settle around you. The wolf tilts its head. Then it does something unexpected. It sits. As if waiting. You wait, too. Minutes pass. Or maybe hours. Time goes weird near gods and ghosts. Finally, the wolf stands again. Turns. Walks back into the forest without a sound. You let out the breath you didn't realize you were holding. When you return to the barn, Admetus is sitting on the stoop, holding your note. He doesn't say anything. Just nods. You hand him the feather. He turns it over, frowns. What kind of bird is this? You shake your head. The worrying kind. You don't sleep much that night. But when you do drift off, the dreams are different. No shadows. No fire. Just music. You wake before dawn. Not because of a sound, or a dream, or even the sheep, which are, for once, quiet. You wake because the stars told you to. Not in words, of course. Stars don't bother with language. They just hum a little differently when something's about to happen. And right now, the sky is humming like it knows a secret. You stretch, bones crackling in a way that is alarmingly mortal, and throw on your damp, goat-scented chitin. Skelos lifts his head from where he's curled on a wool sack and promptly flops back down. The barn is warm and shadowy, filled with the slow breathing of sleeping animals and the faint smell of yesterday's onions. Outside, the air is crisp. The kind of crisp that promises either a lovely breeze or a god-level inconvenience. You find Admetus already up, crouched beside the fire pit, poking embers into reluctant flame. Couldn't sleep, you ask. Didn't try, he replies, not looking up. You going up the ridge again? You nod. He doesn't ask why. You don't offer a reason. This is how things work now, quiet, heavy with shared silences and half-truths. It's oddly comforting. You take your lyre with you. Not to play. Not yet. Just to hold. Like a talisman. Like a promise. The walk up the ridge is different in pre-dawn light. Everything's blue and shadowed and sleepy, like the world hasn't had its coffee yet. Your sandals scuff the dirt path. A bird chirps once, decides against it, and goes back to bed. When you reach the clearing, the feathers are gone. So is the scent. That strange, shimmery smell like lightning and snow. Only the mark remains. You crouch beside it again, fingers tracing the edge. Still no impression of claws or teeth. Just pressure. Weight. Purpose. Historians still argue whether this mark was left by a beast of the underworld or something even older. A few suggest it was the footprint of a titan, those long-exiled behemoths who once danced with time itself. Others think it's symbolic, a metaphor left by wandering poets with too much ink and not enough sheep. You know better. You felt that weight before. Long ago. In Delphi, when the world tilted for just a moment, and something vast moved beneath the earth. You pluck a single note on your lyre. Soft. Cautious. It vanishes into the trees like a question. And something answers. Not in words. Not in sound. In stillness. Everything around you freezes. The leaves stop rustling. The breeze halts. Even the clouds above seem to hesitate. You are being watched. Not by a wolf. Not entirely. You stand slowly, lyre still in hand. Whatever's out there, it's older than wolves. Older than you. Maybe even older than story itself. You turn and walk back, heartbeat steady. No panic. No drama. Just a quiet retreat. You have thinking to do. Back at the barn, Admetus has made breakfast. Barley porridge, honey if you're lucky. You sit beside him and say nothing. He hands you a bowl. Find anything? You shrug. Mostly questions. Same here, he says, gesturing toward the field where Bramble is attempting to eat a stick and getting increasingly offended that it doesn't taste like leaves. The day unfolds slowly. The sheep graze. The goats stage an elaborate jailbreak involving a hinge, a bucket, and what might be a crude pulley system. You watch with quiet admiration as Skelos foils their plot with a well-timed sneeze. You fix the hinge. You fix 3 more things you didn't know could break. You consider inventing a festival in honor of things not breaking. Admetus teaches you how to weave twine from bark. It's dull, repetitive work. You love it. As evening falls, you sit on the fence and play a tune. Not a powerful one. Nothing that could summon storms or charm serpents. Just a lullaby. One you learned from Leto, long ago. It's full of soft intervals and unresolved chords, like someone learning how to love without knowing what love is yet. And in the shadows beyond the field, something listens. You can feel it. Not threatening. Just attentive. You don't stop playing. Not until the stars appear, blinking overhead like tired old gods checking in. Admetus joins you on the fence. He doesn't speak, just listens. Then, after a long silence, he says, "You ever wonder if we're just stories someone hasn't finished writing yet?" You smile. All the time. He doesn't ask who you really are. You think he knows. Or maybe he just understands that some questions are best saved for mornings without wolves. Morning arrives with a quiet stubbornness, as if the world itself is reluctant to wake. The sun peeks over the hills like a shy child at a noisy festival, casting a soft gold across the field where your sheep now seem less like a random flock and more like a community of oddly expressive woolly philosophers. You rub the sleep from your eyes, wondering if the lingering dampness on your skin is rain or just the memory of it. Skelos, the ever-mischievous dog, is already busy with his morning patrol, trotting along the fence line as if he's the farm's unofficial inspector of fences and nap times. You give him a lazy nod, but his tongue lolls out in what you interpret as a canine version of a smirk. Maybe even a joke. You'll need to learn that look someday. The morning routine settles in. The sheep nibble on dew-speckled grass, the goats plot their next escapade somewhere off in the thicket, and Admetus, true to his farming roots, moves through his tasks with the steady rhythm of someone who knows the land as intimately as a poet knows his verses. It's soothing, this regularity, like a heartbeat echoing through the day. You, however, are occupied with another kind of rhythm, the soft pulse of your thoughts circling the mystery of last night's strange stillness. That moment, when the forest held its breath and the invisible watcher seemed to step just out of sight, is an enigma wrapped in the delicate folds of a whispered myth. Was it the pale wolf, the one whose footsteps disappeared near the riverbank? Or something older? Something woven into the very soil and stone beneath your feet? Historians still argue whether such spectral creatures were purely metaphorical warnings or glimpses into a forgotten spiritual reality. Some say the wolf was a guardian, a test of endurance for mortals and gods alike. Others suggest it was a trickster, an embodiment of nature's unpredictable moods, teaching patience through subtle menace. You prefer to think it's both, and that in the space between stories lies the truth. By mid-morning, you find yourself wandering toward the river, your lyre slung loosely over your shoulder. The water moves gently, carrying light and shadow in equal measure, like a liquid storyteller recounting tales without a single word. You pause on a smooth rock and let your fingers brush the strings in a tentative melody, a song half remembered from the days before you wore a crown of laurel or bore the weight of prophecy. Skelos joins you, settling beside your feet with a contented sigh, and you watch as a pair of kingfishers dart across the rippling surface, bright flashes of turquoise against the muted green. The moment is fragile, delicate, a reminder that even gods can find solace in small things. Admetus soon arrives, carrying a basket of fresh herbs and wildflowers. He sits quietly, eyes on the water, as if the river's gentle song speaks to him in a language older than words. "You ever think about what comes after all this?" he asks, breaking the silence without looking your way. You smile, fingers still resting on your lyre. "Every day." But the answer's always the same. "More stories." He nods, as if that's enough. You share a brief glance, an unspoken pact between a god and a mortal, two souls adrift in time but tethered by shared moments. As afternoon slips into evening, you return to the barn where the sheep have rearranged themselves into a surprisingly neat semicircle. You wonder if they appreciate music or simply enjoy the warmth of your company. Either way, you play for them, a gentle tune with quiet pauses and soft crescendos, a lullaby for creatures big and small. The air cools, and stars begin to scatter across the sky like spilled silver dust. Somewhere, a nightingale sings, a song so pure and simple it feels like a benediction. You lean back against the wooden fence, eyes tracing constellations that tell stories of heroes, gods, and creatures long vanished from memory but alive in the night. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, a low, haunting note that blends with your melody. You listen. The next day, the sun rises warm and patient, casting soft amber light over the rolling fields and the sleepy shapes of your flock. The morning air carries a faint scent of time and earth, an ordinary kind of magic that doesn't announce itself with thunder or flash but simply exists, woven into the world's fabric. You're drawn toward the orchard today, where wild apples hang heavy on gnarled branches. Their skins are dappled with gold and blush, each one a small story of sun and rain and time. You remember tales from Delos, how the earliest apples were said to have whispered secrets to the wind, how they could soften even the hardest heart. It's a charming thought, even if the truth is probably less poetic. Admetus meets you there, pruning shears in hand, his brow furrowed with the familiar mix of focus and affection that farmers wear when tending to something precious. You watch him work, fingers deft and sure, and realize that care can be its own kind of worship. As you wander among the trees, a curious thing happens, a sudden rustling, a flash of movement, and then a small creature appears at your feet. It's a tortoise, slow and deliberate, with a shell patterned like a miniature labyrinth. It stares up at you with calm, unblinking eyes. You crouch down, studying it. This tortoise is no ordinary animal. There's an ancient air about it, as if it carries the wisdom of forgotten centuries in its steady gait. You think about the myth of Chelone, the turtle who once refused to join the wedding of the gods and was forever condemned to carry her shell, an emblem of stubbornness and silent endurance. Historians still argue whether Chelone's story was meant to explain the tortoise's shell or to teach a lesson about pride and penance. Some believe it's an old tale that reflects the human need to find meaning in nature's quirks. Others say it's a metaphor for resilience, a gentle reminder that sometimes, slow and steady truly does win the race. You smile at the tortoise and decide to name her Labries. Admetus chuckles from where he's stacking branches. Naming your farm friends now? You shrug. It helps pass the time. Later, as the sun dips low, you find Labries again, this time nestled in the shade beside the barn. She moves with quiet certainty, undisturbed by the bustle around her. You sit nearby and strum a soft tune on your lyre, imagining that your music might ease her long journey, wherever that may lead. The orchard holds its breath, leaves shimmering in the twilight breeze, and for a moment, you feel a rare kind of peace, one born not of power or prophecy but of simply being. That night, as you settle down to sleep beneath a patchwork of stars, you wonder about the stories yet to come, the quiet lessons hidden in the humblest moments, and the strange, beautiful year that continues to unfold like a slow, gentle song. Dawn breaks with a soft glow that spills over the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields where your sheep graze quietly, their breath misting in the cool morning air. Today, you decide to explore a little beyond the farm's usual bounds, a curious urge to see what lies just past the familiar hills. As you walk, the earth beneath your sandals feels alive with stories, a silent pulse that vibrates through stone and soil alike. The countryside stretches out like a patchwork quilt, stitched together by winding dirt paths, wildflowers nodding gently in the breeze, and distant mountains standing sentinel. You pause at a small copse of trees, where a cluster of ancient olive trees grow, their twisted trunks etched with scars of time. These trees are said to be sacred to Athena, their fruit prized not just for taste but for the oil that fueled lamps and warmed the hands of generations. Historians still argue whether the olive's cultural significance began purely for practical reasons or if early rituals imbued it with deeper spiritual meaning. Some scholars suggest that olives symbolized peace and wisdom, while others see them as humble sustenance that grew into sacred tradition over centuries. As you pluck a single olive from a low-hanging branch, its bitterness reminds you of the delicate balance between pleasure and discipline, a theme familiar to any god who swapped immortality for a year's worth of mortal chores. Nearby, a flutter catches your eye. A small bird, a warbler with feathers the color of sun-warmed honey, hops along the underbrush. It sings a quiet, repetitive melody, almost hypnotic in its simplicity. You think of the myth of Philomela, who transformed into a nightingale after a tragic tale of silence and song. While the story carries sorrow, there's also a hint of renewal, how loss can be transformed into beauty, how silence can speak volumes. Historians still debate whether these myths were early allegories for women's voices in ancient times or simply poetic storytelling. You whistle back at the warbler, and for a moment, you feel a kinship, not just with the bird, but with all the quiet creatures of the farm who survive by weaving their songs into the world's fabric. By midday, the sun climbs higher, warming your skin and drying the dew from the grass. Admetus finds you sitting beneath an olive tree, thoughtfully peeling a bit of bark to reveal the smooth wood beneath. "You look like you're searching for answers," he says, settling beside you. You smile. Maybe just appreciating the questions. He nods, understanding more than you say. As afternoon fades into evening, you return to your flock, the familiar bleats greeting you like old friends. Tonight, you plan to play a new melody, one inspired by the olive's bittersweet essence, a tune both grounding and uplifting. The stars blink awake overhead, each one a silent witness to the slow unfolding of your mortal year, full of simple wonders, unexpected lessons, and the quiet magic that only time can reveal. The following morning, a delicate fog blankets the fields, softening edges and muffling sounds. The world feels wrapped in a quiet blanket, as if waiting for something gentle to unfold. You step outside, the cool mist curling around your ankles, the air tasting faintly of damp earth and pine. Your flock is slow to rouse, their woolly forms dim shapes through the haze. Skelos snuffles at the edge of the pasture, nose to the ground, clearly intrigued by scents invisible to you. You watch him, wondering what secrets his canine senses uncover that your godly eyes cannot. You recall an odd fact from your studies: dogs were once sacred messengers, believed to escort souls across the underworld's river. The Greeks thought their keen senses connected them to realms beyond mortal sight. Maybe Skelos is just trying to find breakfast, but you like to imagine he's tracking spirits or stories. As the sun edges higher, burning away the mist, you turn your thoughts to the daily rhythm of tending the flock. It's not just about feeding and herding, it's about understanding each creature's mood, each twitch of an ear or flick of a tail. Sheep, while often dismissed as simple, have personalities, some bold, some shy, some quietly mischievous. You muse on the ancient shepherd's role, not just a caretaker but a mediator between nature and culture, between wildness and order. Historians still debate how much of the shepherd's life was hardship versus ritualized peace. Some see pastoral life as idyllic, others argue it was relentless and lonely. You decide to try your hand at shearing, a task you had always imagined as delicate but turns out to be a test of patience and gentleness. Your first attempt results in a patchy job, and the sheep seem more confused than annoyed. Admetus chuckles from nearby. You'll get better. Or the sheep will just grow thicker wool. Later, as you sit beside the barn, a gentle breeze carries the scent of wildflowers and hay. You pick up your lyre, fingers brushing the strings with newfound respect for the quiet labor that shapes life here. There's a soft knock on the barn door. It's a local woman, carrying a basket of freshly baked bread and a smile that says welcome without words. She tells you about village life, the markets, the festivals, the simple joys and struggles of mortal days. You listen, fascinated by the rich tapestry of human experience that you're only beginning to understand. As night falls, you realize that this year as a shepherd is teaching you something no divine oracle ever could, that the small, slow moments, the shared bread, the silent companionship, the morning mist, are where life's true magic lives. You tuck these lessons into your heart, ready to carry them forward, one gentle day at a time. The day begins with the comforting clatter of the village's morning routine, wooden carts rolling over cobblestones, distant laughter from children, and the faint aroma of baking bread wafting through the air. You step toward the village, curious to see the world beyond your pastoral duties. Walking past the market stalls, you take in the vibrant colors of woven fabrics, the rich scent of spices, and the soft murmur of bargaining voices. It's a sensory tapestry you hadn't expected, the ordinary commerce of mortals transformed into something almost sacred by its rhythm and warmth. A merchant offers you a sample of dried figs, their sticky sweetness a pleasant surprise. You chew thoughtfully, recalling how figs were prized throughout the ancient Mediterranean, often associated with fertility and prosperity. Historians still debate whether figs were first cultivated intentionally or simply harvested from wild trees, marking one of humanity's earliest steps into agriculture. Either way, this small fruit carries stories older than many of the temples you once gazed down upon from Olympus. As you wander, you notice a group of children playing a game with stones and sticks, laughter ringing clear. Their carefree joy reminds you of Dionysian festivals, where wine, dance, and abandon blurred the lines between mortals and gods. You pause to watch, heart quietly warmed. Even here, among simple villagers, the echoes of divine celebration linger. Admetus joins you, carrying a basket of fresh cheese and olives. Fancy a snack? He asks, eyes twinkling. You accept gratefully, the creamy cheese and briny olives a perfect match. You both sit by a fountain, watching the village pulse with life. You think about how this brief visit connects you to a larger web, the lives, hopes, and stories of those who inhabit this world. It's humbling, this sense of belonging, and strangely comforting. Returning to the farm, you carry the day's impressions with you, knowing that these moments will nourish you as much as any meal or melody. The sun dips low, casting long shadows and bathing the fields in golden light. You settle down, fingers finding the strings of your lyre once more, weaving the day's memories into a gentle song. The morning greets you with an unusual chill, a crispness in the air that hints at the coming of autumn. Leaves have begun their slow transformation, flickering from deep green to shades of amber and russet. The earth smells faintly of fallen pine needles and distant smoke from hearth fires. You decide to explore the nearby woodlands, curious to see how the changing season affects the creatures and plants that call this place home. The path crunches softly beneath your sandals, the sound oddly satisfying, like a whispered secret shared between the earth and your steps. As you walk, you spot a small family of hares, their twitching noses and twitching ears alert to every sound. Hares, unlike rabbits, have long symbolized fertility and rebirth, their swift movements often inspiring myths about agility and cleverness. You recall a quirky fact: in some ancient cultures, hares were believed to be shape-shifting spirits or companions of lunar deities, especially Artemis, your sister. Historians still argue whether these beliefs arose from hare behavior or cultural storytelling, but the idea sticks with you. You pause by a cluster of wild mushrooms, their caps shimmering with dew. The variety here is astonishing, some edible, some dangerously toxic, a reminder that nature's beauty often hides subtle risks. You imagine the ancient mortals learning which ones to trust, passing that knowledge down like precious treasure. Nearby, a woodcutter passes by, his axe slung over his shoulder. He nods politely, a man marked by the rhythm of his work, familiar with the forest's moods. You watch him vanish into the trees, a living connection between human labor and the untamed wild. Back at the farm, the sheep huddle closer as the day cools. You build a small fire, the smoke curling upwards in lazy spirals. Sitting beside it, you strum a soft melody, weaving the woodland's quiet presence into your song. As night falls, the stars begin their silent dance overhead, their cold light contrasting with the warmth of the fire. You feel a gentle contentment, a deepening bond to this earthly existence, and a quiet hope that the coming seasons will continue to teach you their subtle lessons. The farm wakes with the soft murmur of a gentle breeze stirring the fields, carrying with it the scent of drying hay and ripe barley. You watch as the sheep graze, their woolly bodies moving in slow, synchronized rhythm, like a soft tide rolling across the land. Today, your focus turns to the ancient practice of cheese-making, a craft revered by mortals and gods alike. You learn from Admetus that cheese was a staple here, a way to preserve milk's richness through the harsh seasons. It's fascinating to think this humble food has nourished civilizations for thousands of years. Historians still argue how cheese-making techniques traveled across cultures. Some say it spread through nomadic herders, others claim it emerged independently in various regions. Either way, the fact that you can hold a piece of curdled milk in your hand, taste its tangy promise, feels like touching history itself. Admetus guides you through the process, warming the milk, adding rennet, curds forming like tiny clouds in the pot. Your fingers are clumsy, but the result, though rough, is strangely satisfying. The sheep seem indifferent, though you suspect they're judging your skills silently. You muse on how the transformation of milk into cheese mirrors your own slow transformation here, from God to shepherd, from eternal to vulnerable. Both are processes requiring patience, respect, and a willingness to embrace change. As evening descends, you sit beneath an olive tree, the gnarled branches whispering ancient secrets. You nibble on a piece of cheese, savoring its rustic flavor, and strum a tune that mingles with the chirping of crickets and rustling leaves. The simple joys of this life, cheese, song, the company of woolly friends, feel like a balm for your restless spirit. The sun dips below the horizon, casting a soft glow, and you settle in, ready to dream of fields, flocks, and quiet moments yet to come. The morning arrives quietly, filtered through a thin veil of mist that wraps the farm in a soft, silvery light. You breathe deeply, the cool air filled with the faint fragrance of wild thyme and damp earth. It's one of those moments when the world feels suspended, caught between waking and dreaming. You decide to try your hand at milking one of the sheep. Not an easy task, you quickly discover. The sheep's eyes, wide and patient, watch you with what you swear is mild skepticism. You fumble, your fingers unfamiliar with the gentle rhythm needed to coax the milk. Admetus watches from a distance, a smile tugging at his lips but no offer to help. It's your lesson, after all. You remember how in ancient Greece, sheep's milk was prized not just for drinking but for making cheese and even cosmetics. The concept that such a simple act holds layers of meaning surprises you. Historians still argue whether early shepherds developed milking techniques by trial and error or through divine inspiration, perhaps a tale you'd appreciate more now, sitting here, humbled by a simple udder. After a few awkward tries, you succeed in filling a small wooden pail. The liquid is warm and smells faintly of the grasses the sheep have been munching. You feel a strange satisfaction, as if you've bridged a gap between mortal and God, ancient and now. Later, as the sun climbs higher, you sit by the stream to wash your hands, the cold water rushing over your fingers. The sounds of the farm, bleating, rustling leaves, distant church bells, blend into a soft symphony. You strum your lyre, the notes mingling with nature's music, creating a lullaby for the waking world. As evening falls, you tuck yourself beneath a blanket, the day's simple labors settling into your bones. You think about how much this experience has changed your perspective, how the quiet rhythms of mortal life offer their own kind of divine grace. Today, you decide to delve into the world of ancient farming tools, rudimentary but effective instruments that shaped the lives of countless generations. Admetus shows you a wooden plow, worn smooth by years of use, its curved blade still sharp enough to slice through the soil. You try your hand at guiding the plow, feeling the earth resist and yield beneath its blade. It's heavier than you imagined, requiring steady hands and patient effort. The sweat beads on your brow, the scent of freshly turned soil mingling with the faint aroma of wildflowers. You recall how early Greek farmers relied on these tools, their lives intimately connected to the land's rhythms. The plow wasn't just a piece of wood and metal, it was a symbol of life's continuity, of seasons turning, of human endurance. Historians still argue whether the plow's invention originated in the Aegean or was borrowed from Near Eastern cultures, but its impact is undeniable, feeding populations and fostering civilizations. Nearby, a flock of swallows darts through the sky, their swift, darting movements a living reminder of the world's delicate balance. You smile, thinking of the stories linking these birds to the gods, messengers of change and renewal. As the afternoon wanes, you rest beneath an ancient olive tree, its gnarled trunk a testament to centuries of silent witness. You strum your lyre softly, a tune inspired by the rhythm of the plow and the steady heartbeat of the earth. The day's labor leaves you tired but oddly fulfilled. There is beauty in this slow, steady work, a harmony between human effort and nature's generosity. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the farm's quiet embrace soothe you. The sun rises pale and hesitant, casting long shadows across the field as morning dew clings to blades of grass like tiny jewels. You feel the coolness seep through your sandals, grounding you in this moment of stillness before the day's chores begin. Today's task: repairing the old fence. Admetus hands you a hammer and some nails, explaining the importance of keeping the sheep safely corralled from wandering too close to the forest edge. It's a humble duty, but one that reminds you how much mortal life depends on simple boundaries. As you work, you think about ancient boundary markers, stones, carved symbols, and even trees, that marked territories and sacred spaces. Historians still argue whether these markers were primarily practical or held spiritual significance, but they undoubtedly shaped community identity and order. Your hammer strikes the wood rhythmically, the sound blending with the distant bleating of sheep and the soft rustle of leaves. There's a strange comfort in this repetitive task, a meditation in the connection between hand, tool, and earth. Nearby, a cicada's steady drone fills the warm air, its ancient song a reminder that life cycles continue regardless of God's whims. You pause to watch a small family of ants ferry crumbs back to their nest, their tireless teamwork an echo of mortal perseverance. By midday, the fence stands sturdier, a testament to your patient effort. Admetus claps you on the back with a grin. Not bad for a shepherd in training. You laugh softly, thinking that maybe there's more to this mortal year than just punishment. It's a chance to see the world from the ground up, with all its quiet demands and unexpected joys. As evening settles, you find yourself humming a tune inspired by the fence's steady construction, a lullaby for boundaries both physical and metaphorical. The sun rises pale and hesitant, casting long shadows across the field as morning dew clings to blades of grass like tiny jewels. You feel the coolness seep through your sandals, grounding you in this moment of stillness before the day's chores begin. Today's task: repairing the old fence. Admetus hands you a hammer and some nails, explaining the importance of keeping the sheep safely corralled from wandering too close to the forest edge. It's a humble duty, but one that reminds you how much mortal life depends on simple boundaries. As you work, you think about ancient boundary markers, stones, carved symbols, and even trees, that marked territories and sacred spaces. Historians still argue whether these markers were primarily practical or held spiritual significance, but they undoubtedly shaped community identity and order. Your hammer strikes the wood rhythmically, the sound blending with the distant bleating of sheep and the soft rustle of leaves. There's a strange comfort in this repetitive task, a meditation in the connection between hand, tool, and earth. Nearby, a cicada's steady drone fills the warm air, its ancient song a reminder that life cycles continue regardless of God's whims. You pause to watch a small family of ants ferry crumbs back to their nest, their tireless teamwork an echo of mortal perseverance. By midday, the fence stands sturdier, a testament to your patient effort. Admetus claps you on the back with a grin. Not bad for a shepherd in training. You laugh softly, thinking that maybe there's more to this mortal year than just punishment. It's a chance to see the world from the ground up, with all its quiet demands and unexpected joys. As evening settles, you find yourself humming a tune inspired by the fence's steady construction, a lullaby for boundaries both physical and metaphorical. The morning unfolds with the gentle clatter of a small wooden cart trundling down the dirt path. Admetus announces a trip to the nearby village market, a rare excursion that promises sights and sounds far beyond the quiet farm. You tag along, feeling a mix of curiosity and mild apprehension. The marketplace is alive with traders calling out wares, fresh figs, olives, pottery glazed in earthy hues. The smell of baked bread mingles with the tang of herbs, and you realize how deeply food weaves into mortal community life. You watch as merchants haggle over prices with good-natured teasing, their voices a tapestry of accents and dialects. It strikes you that marketplaces were the ancient world's social hubs, places where news traveled faster than any messenger. Historians still debate how marketplaces influenced cultural exchange. Some argue they were crucial for spreading ideas and inventions, others emphasize their economic roles. Either way, they're lively centers of connection. As you stroll, you notice an old woman selling honeycomb, her fingers sticky with golden sweetness. She smiles when you stop, offering a taste. The flavor is rich, sun-kissed, and utterly grounding. You catch snippets of conversations, talk of harvests, festivals, and rumors of distant lands. You tuck these stories away, knowing they'll color your nights with new melodies and images. The trip ends with a slow walk back to the farm, the sun dipping low and painting the sky in soft pinks. You carry a small sack of figs, their sweetness a promise of tomorrow's quiet pleasures. Back on the farm, your attention shifts to the evening ritual of lighting oil lamps. The flickering flames cast long shadows that dance on the barn walls, turning the simple space into a theater of light and shade. Admetus explains how ancient Greeks used olive oil in lamps, a practice that spread throughout the Mediterranean. The glow was more than mere illumination, it created atmosphere, comfort, and even protection from restless spirits. Historians still argue about the symbolism of fire in Greek culture. Was it a divine gift or a tool harnessed by humans? Regardless, it was central to daily life and myth alike. You carefully trim the lamp's wick, watching the flame flicker to life. It's mesmerizing, the steady glow a quiet companion to the gathering dusk. Outside, the sounds of night begin, the croak of frogs, the rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. The farm settles into a softer pace, the sheep nesting in warm piles of wool. You sit nearby, your lyre resting on your lap, fingers idly plucking strings. The music mingles with the firelight, weaving a gentle spell that soothes both body and mind. Tonight, you think about fire's dual nature, how it warms and how it demands respect. A small flame, held carefully, mirrors the fragile balance of your mortal year, power contained, lessons learned. The morning air carries a subtle chill, signaling the slow turn of seasons. You decide to explore the nearby olive grove, where twisted trunks hold centuries of silent witness. Walking among the gnarled trees, you reflect on the olive's significance, its oil used for cooking, lighting, and sacred anointing. Olive branches were symbols of peace and victory, woven into wreaths for heroes and gods alike. Historians still argue about the origins of olive cultivation, whether it began in Crete or spread from the Levant, but its cultural importance is undeniable. You run your fingers along a rough bark, feeling the deep grooves carved by time. Somewhere in the leaves, a cicada hums its endless song, a soundtrack to the slow rhythm of life here. Admetus joins you, sharing stories of harvest festivals and ancient customs. You learn how olives were pressed with simple stone mills, their oil carefully stored in ceramic jars sealed with wax. As you wander, you pick a few olives, their taste bitter yet promising. The grove's quietude feels like a sanctuary, a place where gods might pause and listen. You hum a new melody, inspired by the grove's timeless grace, and imagine the ancient celebrations echoing through these trees. The day fades gently, and you return to the farm with a sense of deepened connection to land, history, and the slow unfolding of this mortal chapter. The morning air carries a subtle chill, signaling the slow turn of seasons. You decide to explore the nearby olive grove, where twisted trunks hold centuries of silent witness. Walking among the gnarled trees, you reflect on the olive's significance, its oil used for cooking, lighting, and sacred anointing. Olive branches were symbols of peace and victory, woven into wreaths for heroes and gods alike. Historians still argue about the origins of olive cultivation, whether it began in Crete or spread from the Levant, but its cultural importance is undeniable. You run your fingers along a rough bark, feeling the deep grooves carved by time. Somewhere in the leaves, a cicada hums its endless song, a soundtrack to the slow rhythm of life here. Admetus joins you, sharing stories of harvest festivals and ancient customs. You learn how olives were pressed with simple stone mills, their oil carefully stored in ceramic jars sealed with wax. As you wander, you pick a few olives, their taste bitter yet promising. The grove's quietude feels like a sanctuary, a place where gods might pause and listen. You hum a new melody, inspired by the grove's timeless grace, and imagine the ancient celebrations echoing through these trees. The day fades gently, and you return to the farm with a sense of deepened connection to land, history, and the slow unfolding of this mortal chapter. Today, the focus shifts to the ancient art of cheesemaking, a practice as old as farming itself. Admetus shows you a small wooden vat filled with warm milk, explaining how curds and whey separate to create the rich delicacy. You watch as he adds a pinch of rennet, a mysterious enzyme from the stomach of a young animal, to coax the transformation. The process feels almost magical, blending science with age-old tradition. Historians still debate the exact origins of cheese, but it's clear that it was an essential food source for shepherds and city dwellers alike. As the curds firm, you sneak a taste, mild, tangy, and oddly comforting. It strikes you that food often carries stories within its flavors, connecting past to present. The farm's cats linger nearby, their sleek forms moving silently as if guardians of this humble ritual. By nightfall, the cheese rests in woven baskets, and you wonder how many hands have repeated this quiet craft over centuries, weaving sustenance from milk and patience. You hum a gentle tune inspired by the curd's slow transformation, a melody that honors the subtle alchemy of everyday life. A strange and wonderful thing happens mid-morning. A flock of migratory birds passes overhead, their V-shaped formation cutting through the sky like an ancient, living map. You pause, entranced by their rhythm, and consider how ancient peoples read such patterns for guidance, timing, and even prophecy. Historians still argue whether birds were primarily seen as messengers or omens, but their presence was undeniably woven into myth and daily ritual. You recall stories of Icarus and Daedalus, wings and flight, and feel a kinship with creatures bound between earth and sky. Nearby, a small field mouse darts through the grass, oblivious to the divine drama above. Its simple urgency is grounding. Admetus mentions a festival celebrating seasonal change, where people danced beneath the bird's flight path, hoping to borrow their grace. You imagine joining the dance, your feet light and carefree, the breeze carrying your song upward. As the birds vanish beyond the horizon, you feel the farm settle into an afternoon lull, your thoughts soaring with the migrating wings. The afternoon calls for weaving, another humble craft that brings form and function to daily life. You sit beside Admetus as he works flax fibers, twisting and braiding with practiced ease. You learn how ancient textiles were made from flax, wool, and sometimes goat hair, each thread a connection to land and labor. Historians still debate whether weaving was a sacred act or a practical necessity, though goddesses like Athena clearly held it in divine esteem. The repetitive motion calms your mind, each twist a rhythm echoed in your heart. You try your hand at the spindle, fumbling as fibers slip away, but the laughter that follows feels warm and human. Outside, a gentle breeze stirs the tall grass, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and earth. You imagine the women who wove stories and cloth alike, passing down skills through quiet moments like this. As twilight nears, you wrap a rough but proud piece of cloth around your shoulders, feeling woven into the fabric of mortal life. That evening brings a lesson in ancient astronomy. Admetus points out familiar constellations, the Great Bear, Orion's Belt, and the elusive Pleiades. You listen as he recounts myths tied to each star group, stories where gods, heroes, and animals are immortalized in the night sky. Historians still argue over how much ancient star lore influenced navigation and calendar keeping, but its cultural importance is clear. You trace patterns with your finger, imagining the sky as a vast tapestry of light and legend. A cool breeze rustles the leaves, and fireflies flicker like terrestrial stars. You hum a lullaby inspired by the stars' silent journey, feeling small but connected in this vast cosmos. As you prepare for rest, the constellations seem to nod in approval, guardians of your dreams. Morning light reveals a surprise, a small patch of wild herbs growing near the barn. Admetus explains their uses: thyme for flavor, sage for health, and oregano for strength. You muse on how herbs were both kitchen staples and medicine cabinets in one. Historians still debate the effectiveness of some ancient remedies, though their cultural significance is undisputed. You carefully harvest a sprig, inhaling its fragrant oils, feeling momentarily like an apothecary. The sheep nibble nearby, unconcerned by your new venture into herbal lore. You weave a soft melody that captures the scents and textures of this modest garden. As the day unfolds, you experiment with simple infusions, finding calm in these small acts of care. The afternoon is spent gathering firewood, an unglamorous but vital chore. Each log you select seems to hold its own story, from ancient oaks to slender willows. You think about how fire fueled human progress, shaping societies and stories alike. Historians still debate how early peoples balanced the benefits and dangers of fire, but there's no denying its power. Your arms ache pleasantly as you haul wood back to the barn, muscles remembering labor's rhythm. A raven caws from a nearby branch, its keen eyes watching your work with inscrutable interest. You whistle a tune that rises and falls like flames, imagining the warmth to come. As dusk falls, you stack the wood neatly, preparing for the evening's fire. Evening arrives with the first fire of the day. You strike flint against stone, sparks catching dry tinder and kindling a small blaze. Admetus nods approvingly. Not bad for a god. The fire crackles, sending warm light dancing across faces and walls. You ponder the role of fire in myth, Prometheus's gift, a spark of rebellion and hope. Historians still debate how fire rituals bridged human and divine realms, but their importance is undeniable. You sit close, feeling the heat seep into your bones, a balm for tired limbs and spirits. Your lyre sings softly, weaving stories into the flickering glow. Outside, the night wraps around the farm like a velvet cloak, safe and quiet. The next morning dawns cool and misty. You wander toward a nearby stream, its clear water babbling over smooth stones. You dip your hands in, feeling the cold rush, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the fire. Water, life's constant companion, has inspired countless myths, from river gods to healing springs. Historians still argue over how early peoples understood water's sacred qualities versus its practical uses. A dragonfly flits past, iridescent wings catching the morning light. You gather fresh water for the sheep and yourself, appreciating the simple ritual. You hum a melody that mirrors the stream's gentle flow, feeling your thoughts drift downstream. Returning to the farm, you sense the delicate balance between movement and stillness, earth and sky. That afternoon, Admetus teaches you to mend a torn cloak. You fumble with needle and thread, grateful for his patient guidance. The act of repairing feels symbolic, patching not just fabric, but perhaps your own journey. Historians still debate how textiles reflected social status and identity, with worn garments telling stories as loud as speech. The sun filters through the barn's wooden slats, spotlighting your awkward stitches. A barn owl hoots softly outside, a nocturnal sentinel. You hum a quiet tune, a meditation on resilience and renewal. By evening, the cloak is whole again, a humble but meaningful triumph. You tuck it away, a small token of progress in this slow, unexpected year. The morning sun filters through the olive leaves as you set out to craft a simple wooden flute. Admetus brings you a slender branch, and together you carve finger holes, shaping the instrument with steady hands. Music, you remind yourself, was always your domain, but here, far from divine orchestras and celestial lyres, the simplicity of a wooden flute feels profoundly grounding. Historians still argue whether early Greek music was more ritualistic or recreational, but its power to move emotions is indisputable. You blow a hesitant note, sharp and raw, then a smoother tone that makes the birds pause mid-flight. Admetus taps his foot, amused. "You're rusty," he says. You grin, promising to practice. The sheep gather, curious, as your awkward melody ripples through the cool air, weaving through the trees like a whisper. By midday, you're tasked with gathering honey from the farm's modest beehive. Wearing a hastily woven veil, you approach the buzzing swarm with cautious respect. Honey was sacred to many ancient peoples, medicine, sweetener, and symbol of abundance. Historians still debate the extent of beekeeping in early Greek society, but its role in diet and ritual is well documented. You gently remove a comb dripping with golden nectar, careful not to disturb the workers. Admetus watches, admiring your care. "Not every god can handle bees," he jokes. You taste the honey, rich and floral, and feel a moment's delight in this small earthly pleasure. A bee lands briefly on your hand, a living jewel. You hum a gentle tune inspired by the hive's buzzing chorus. That afternoon, you join Admetus in repairing a stone wall surrounding the farm. The rough blocks fit together imperfectly, yet the structure stands firm. Stonework was a fundamental skill, providing protection and defining property in ancient Greece. Historians still argue over how communal versus individual ownership influenced such constructions. You heft a heavy block, feeling the raw weight of labor, and marvel at how human hands shaped the landscape. Admetus tells tales of famous walls, the Cyclopean fortresses and the Acropolis. You imagine the voices of workers past, chanting rhythms to ease their toil. As the sun lowers, the wall grows stronger, and so do you, both in muscle and spirit. Evening brings a lesson in pottery. You watch Admetus spin the wheel, shaping clay with fluid motions. Pottery was both art and utility, jars, bowls, and amphorae holding wine, oil, and stories. Historians still debate how early pottery styles spread across regions, reflecting trade and cultural exchange. You try molding a small cup, fingers slick with wet clay, laughing as it collapses under your touch. The scent of damp earth fills the room, comforting and ancient. You hum a tune echoing the potter's steady rhythm, a song of creation and patience. By night, your lopsided cup dries beside the fire, a humble monument to learning. The next morning, you explore the farm's small herb garden, where rosemary, mint, and lavender thrive. Admetus shares stories of how herbs flavored food and healed ailments. Historians still debate the exact medical knowledge held by ancient shepherds versus city physicians. You crush fresh leaves between your fingers, releasing fragrant oils that remind you of sunlit hills. The bees hum nearby, busy in their work. You craft a melody inspired by the garden scents, a gentle, soothing tune that calms restless minds. You think of how nature's gifts sustained mortals, and how this year has taught you to appreciate small miracles. That afternoon, a curious visitor appears, a wandering philosopher, draped in simple robes, eyes sharp and thoughtful. He asks about your journey, listening intently as you speak of gods humbled and mortals elevated. Philosophy was blossoming in Greece, questioning gods and men alike. Historians still argue about how much these thinkers influenced popular belief versus elite discourse. The philosopher challenges you with questions about fate, free will, and the nature of divinity. You find his curiosity refreshing, even humbling. As he departs, you wonder if the greatest lessons come not from power, but from conversation. You hum a tune inspired by the meeting, a melody that lingers in the twilight. The farm experiences an unexpected heat wave. The sun presses down mercilessly, and you feel every bead of sweat like a minor defeat. You remember stories of the scorching summer of 480 BCE, when Greeks faced invaders under a blistering sky. Historians still debate the impact of weather on ancient battles and society. You seek shade beneath an old fig tree, its leaves thick and generous. Admetus offers you a drink of cool spring water, a small mercy in the heat. You hum a slow, languid melody, reflecting the sun's heavy hand. The sheep lie still, panting softly, sharing your lethargy in this unexpected trial. A sudden thunderstorm rolls in, lightning flashing across the darkening sky. You watch as rain pounds the earth, drumming a fierce rhythm. Storms were often seen as divine messages, Zeus's voice made manifest. Historians still argue whether such storms influenced myths more than natural observation. You feel a primal awe, sitting sheltered while the world blurs under sheets of rain. Admetus laughs, shaking his head at your childlike wonder. You hum a tune full of crackling energy, the sound of God speaking in thunder. The storm passes, leaving the air fresh and new. The next day, you find yourself collecting firewood again, this time in a nearby grove of wild figs and pines. You notice how different woods burn with varied colors and scents. Historians still debate how ancient peoples used firewood types for cooking, rituals, or heating. You gather fragrant pine branches, imagining their smoky aroma filling the evening air. Admetus talks of ancient rituals where fires burned bright as offerings. You hum a tune inspired by the crackle and pop of a fire's dance. The gathered wood promises warmth and stories to come. That evening, you share a quiet meal with Admetus, simple fare of bread, olives, and fresh cheese. You marvel at how such humble ingredients can nourish and satisfy. Historians still argue over the exact diets of ancient shepherds, but the Mediterranean staples endure. You feel gratitude for the earth's gifts, the cycles of growth and harvest. Admetus tells stories of feasts and festivals, where even gods broke bread with mortals. You hum a soft, contented melody, a song of shared meals and quiet friendship. The night settles warmly around you, a gentle close to a full day. Dawn breaks with a soft pink glow as you join Admetus in milking the goats. Their rhythmic bleats mix with the gentle swish of morning breezes through olive branches. Milk was a vital staple, raw, fresh, and often turned into cheese and yogurt. Historians still debate how widespread dairy farming was among early Greeks, especially shepherd communities. You carefully fill your wooden cup, the creamy liquid rich and slightly sweet. Admetus jokes, maybe the god of shepherds should have tried this first. You laugh, hum a tune about new beginnings and simple pleasures, feeling more connected with each passing day. Later, you wander the nearby woods, gathering herbs to brew a calming tea. The scent of chamomile and sage rises with the steam. Herbal remedies were ancient comforts for aches, sleepless nights, and restless minds. Historians still argue over how much ancient medicine relied on superstition versus practical knowledge. You sip the warm brew, savoring its gentle bitterness. The forest around you hums softly, alive with unseen creatures. You hum a melody inspired by the delicate balance between nature and healing. A moment of peace settles in your chest, quiet and deep. That afternoon, you assist Admetus in weaving simple baskets from reeds near the riverbank. Baskets were essential for carrying food, tools, and harvests, their craftsmanship often passed down through generations. Historians still debate how widespread weaving skills were among men and women in rural Greece. You fumble with the reeds, twisting and looping until a crude basket takes shape. Admetus smiles, not bad for a god who usually commands storms. You chuckle, humming a soft tune about patience and persistence. The sun dips low as the basket dries, a humble trophy of your growing skills. As twilight falls, you sit by the fire and listen to Admetus tell stories of local heroes and forgotten gods. Oral tradition kept myths alive, passing tales from mouth to eager ear. Historians still argue about how much these stories changed with each telling. You find comfort in the flickering shadows, imagining the ancient storytellers who came before. You join in with a quiet song, weaving your own thread into the tapestry of myth. The fire crackles, the night deepens, and your eyelids grow heavy. The night brings dreams thick with memories, your birthplace Delos, the sunlit seas, and the laughter of your twin sister Artemis. Dreams were seen as messages, guides between gods and mortals. Historians still debate how ancient Greeks interpreted dreams and their role in decision-making. You drift through visions, a celestial dance of light and shadow. You hum a lullaby, a song to keep the dreams soft and kind. Morning will come, but for now, you rest, shepherd, god, and storyteller all at once. With dawn's return, you help Admetus harvest olives, their leathery skins glowing purple in the soft light. Olives were vital to Greek life, food, oil, currency, and ritual. Historians still argue about when olive cultivation began on a large scale. You press some fruit in a crude stone mill, the rich oil dripping slowly. Admetus jokes about future gods praising olive oil instead of lyres. You laugh, humming a tune about the earth's quiet generosity. The season turns slowly, a gentle rhythm of work and reward. The afternoon drifts into quiet as you help mend a worn leather saddle, stitching with care. Horseback riding was less common for shepherds but vital in broader Greek society. Historians still debate how much mobility influenced cultural exchange and warfare. You find the tactile work grounding, each stitch a small act of patience. Admetus admires your growing dexterity. You hum a steady tune, the sound of steady hands and gentle focus. The day fades, soft and slow. Evening brings a visit from a local merchant carrying rare spices, cinnamon, saffron, and myrrh. Trade routes stretched farther than most imagined, connecting distant lands through shared goods. Historians still debate the true extent of these early Mediterranean networks. You inhale the exotic scents, amazed at how small the world feels. Admetus bargains cheerfully, trading wool for sweetness. You hum a curious tune, inspired by journeys and discovery. Night blankets the farm with dreams of faraway places. The next morning, you try your hand at simple map-making, sketching the farm and nearby woods on parchment. Maps were treasured tools for travelers and strategists alike. Historians still argue when accurate cartography truly began in the ancient world. Your drawings are clumsy but sincere, the lines and shapes capturing your new home. Admetus points out landmarks, his voice warm with pride. You hum a gentle melody about journeys yet to come. The quiet world stretches wide, inviting exploration. Afternoon light filters golden as you practice weaving garlands from wildflowers, weaving patterns of color and scent. Garlands celebrated seasons, festivals, and love. Historians still debate how widespread floral symbolism was beyond religious rites. You crown yourself with lavender and daisies, feeling a touch of joy. Admetus laughs, placing one atop his head too. You hum a playful tune, a dance of petals and wind. The farm glows softly in the late sun. Night descends quietly as you sit beside the fire with Admetus and the sheep gathered close, the warmth soothing and familiar. The year nears its end, your time as shepherd almost over. You reflect on lessons learned, patience, humility, and the deep bond between God and earth. Historians still argue whether this tale was myth or a metaphor for growth. You hum a final melody, soft and fading, like the last light of dusk. Sleep comes easy, your heart full, the fire's warmth wraps around you like a gentle blanket as night deepens. The stars overhead flicker quietly, familiar and steady, their ancient light traveling across the cosmos just to touch this humble patch of earth. You breathe in the smoky scent of burning wood mixed with the earthy aroma of sleeping sheep and dew-soaked grass. Each breath slows your racing thoughts, drawing you further into calmness. You feel the soft, rhythmic rise and fall of Admeta's steady presence nearby, a reminder that even gods can find solace in simple companionship. The world around you seems to hush, folding itself into a slow, soft rhythm, the kind that holds no urgency, no need to prove, no divine decree pressing down. Just the gentle pulse of life itself. You think back on the days gone by, the cold rain that forced patience, the awkward attempts at farming and crafting, the quiet conversations with creatures who never spoke back, and the unexpected joy in small tasks. You realize how strange and beautiful it is to find peace not in power or glory but in the humble cadence of daily life. Your thoughts drift to your sister Artemis, to the stars you once chased, and to the quiet songs that now seem to carry a deeper meaning. You understand, in this soft moment, that even a god can learn from the earth beneath his feet and the gentle hands of time. The fire crackles once more, then settles into glowing embers as your eyes grow heavy. You hum a lullaby, a melody without words, meant only for the night, for the softest dreams. The world blurs gently, colors fading to deep blues and silvers. Sleep invites you in like a familiar friend, slow and kind. The sky breathes with you, the quiet hum of the night wrapping around your soul. And as you drift away, the sheep settle, the stars twinkle, and the story folds softly into silence.
Thank you so much for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through the past, we'd love it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to the Dozing Historian. It helps us keep making cozy, sleepy history content, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drifts in. Sleep well, and we'll see you next time.